Hey, what's going on, y'all? This is Mr. Fitness, the body transformation specialist. And on this episode of Weight Loss Warriors, we're going to be speaking to Dusty. So Dusty has a really good story that he's going to be sharing with us tonight. And he's going to share with us how he's lost over 300 pounds so far. We're going to find out if he's at his goal weight or if he's looking to lose a little bit more. So if you're new to Weight Loss Warriors, I want to welcome you. But if you're returning, welcome back. Our goal on Weight Loss Warriors is to encourage, motivate, and to inspire you to know that you too can do it. So if you're ready for another awesome episode of Weight Loss Warriors, and you are in the right place. But before we get to Dusty, if you've never been here before and you want to catch up on some of the past episodes of Weight Loss Warriors, head on over to youtube.com, obviously after the live. Head on over to youtube.com/fitnessmotivation4u2. That's fitness motivation, the number 4, the letter U, the number 2. There you'll be able to watch every single episode of Weight Loss Warriors, plus check out some other really good content. And while you're there, consider subscribing and hit that bell notification so you never ever miss another episode. Also, if you've got a weight loss story that you'd like to share and you'd like to do it here on a future episode of Weight Loss Warriors, then here's what I want you to do. If you're watching this live, go ahead and DM me and let's talk. But if you're watching this on YouTube, down below in the description, there'll be a link where you can go ahead and reach out to me and let's talk about getting you on a future episode. Last but not least, before we get to Dusty and his story, if you're looking to start a journey but you don't know what to do, or you've already started a journey, but you're not getting the results that you think you should be getting, I'd love to help. So I'm offering you a free 30 days to my online fitness and nutritional coaching program. So if you're watching this live, go ahead and DM me. But if you're watching this on the rebroadcast on YouTube, down below, there's going to be a link where you can reach out. With that being said, let's see if we can get Dusty on the show. Let's see where he's at. He should be coming in just a few moments. Okay. Instagram must have changed some things up to add someone to the live, but we're waiting for Dusty to come on. So again, Dusty's gonna share. There he is. Dusty, how you doing, man? I can't hear you. Hold on one second. I don't know if it's on my end or your end, but I can see you, but I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
All right. So you're a little bit, you're frozen on my screen, but hey, as long as I can hear you, I know you're there. We are all good. So Dusty, how are you doing tonight?
Doing well. Doing very, very well. Thanks for having me. Happy Saturday to you and to everybody.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, on Weight Loss Warriors, I don't like to, waste time. I want to get into you and your story and where you've been and where you're at and where you're looking to go. We're getting a whole bunch of hearts on here, so you're getting a lot of love on this live. So let's go back to the beginning of your journey. What was your highest weight?
My highest weight was 534 pounds, and that was July of 2016.
Okay, so July of 2016, that was your highest weight. What's your current weight?
Current weight is 217 pounds.
Okay, so right now we're at 217. Now, how long did it take you to get to that weight?
Roughly 2 years, 2.5 years. I stopped probably about 6 months ago. My weight leveled out at the 217 range, and I've been working on really body fat percentage now. So my weight has just stayed the same at the 217 now. So
it sounds like your focus has changed from weight loss to fat loss.
Yes. Fat loss. I'm working on my body fat percentage. I do have additional skin because of the massive weight loss. So eventually I would like to get the skin surgery. So I'd like to make that as easy as possible for the future surgeon. So I'm working on keeping my body fat percentage as low as possible to make that easier.
Mm-hmm. So are you at your goal weight, or are you looking to continue to lose more, or is it just focused on losing fat at this point?
At this point, I've really gauged how I feel, and my body fat percentage is kind of the indicator if I'm at my goal. I feel that I'm at my goal weight, but because I've never been here before, I feel like I'm getting in uncharted territory where if someone were to say, man, you look fine, you're at your goal weight, I'd accept that. If someone said, hey, you need to lose it a little bit more, I would wonder from where, but I would know that, okay, well, I guess I need to lose a little weight. It's kind of a gray area for me. I feel good. I go to the gym as much as possible, so I feel that I'm at my goal weight, and my body fat percentage is relatively low, so I feel that I'm there, but I know that I could always improve in different ways.
So it sounds like you're on the right track. I've been following your story and your journey, and I'm really loving the pictures of you in the gym and, you know, you working out and some of the videos you've been posting. So we're going to get to that part because I think that's played a huge role in at least the point that you're at right now, the gym. And I do want to touch on why that's important for people that are either starting a journey or, you know, already in a journey, is to get into the gym and to start lifting weights and start doing cardio. So I definitely want to get into that. But first, I want to go backwards to the beginning of your journey. And I know when we talked, you said that you had started having some issues and you needed help doing normal things. What were some of those things that you needed help doing?
So a couple things that come to mind are just tying my shoe. I couldn't actually bend down far enough to reach my feet, or I could tie my shoe, I could put socks on. Everything was done with extreme difficulty. I remember I would start sweating. I would sweat profusely if I was trying to do something long term, like get ready, put socks and shoes on. Everyday things just became difficult. Even walking, you know, I really enjoy the beach. I enjoy going to the beach, and you know, a particular spot that I typically go to, I found myself having to stop halfway just to catch my breath and just to get myself together, just because I couldn't walk that far. My lower back would just absolutely kill me, and I just couldn't do everyday operations, just normal things that we take for granted every single day. I found it a struggle. I would have to think ahead just by simply, if I knew that I was going into Target and it was a lot of walking, I was like, well, do I really need to go? It's a lot of walking, and that's probably going to hurt. So everyday things, from getting ready, tying on my shoes, to just walking and living, was just restricted heavily.
Mm-hmm. So it definitely sounds like your quality of life has increased now that you've started your journey and you've lost all this weight, and it sounds like you're in a much better place.
Yeah, much better place. The quality of life was very poor. There's an overwhelming feeling that there's almost like this darkness that settles in when quality of life is really, really low. And it was something I look back on now, and my quality of life is a lot better. I've been able to do the things that I just wasn't able to even think about doing before. So my quality of life is extremely improved from making that decision.
Mm-hmm. So what do you say to somebody that might be putting off starting their journey for one reason or another? Part of the reason behind this, or the goal, is to get people to the point where they take action before they need to take action. You know, we want to prevent as many issues down the road as we possibly can. So you got the person that might be watching this live or might be watching it on the replay on YouTube, and they're contemplating. They've been putting it off for a while, and they know they need to do something. What do you say to that person to give them a little bit more, I guess, reasons to get started?
Yeah, and coming from someone like myself who has been big pretty much their whole life. I was born 12 pounds. God bless my mom. She gave birth to me at 12 pounds. I've dealt with being overweight my entire life, and I've always made it a point to go on a diet, but then quickly fall off and kind of go through that yo-yo diet trend my entire life up until about 32 years. And now that I'm here, and now that I'm at this point where my quality of life is improved and I'm able to do things I haven't been able to do before, I would simply say that the day that you, the week that you, the month that you delay it, you are delaying the inevitable quality of life that you're wanting and thinking and yearning for. The ability to do things that you thought never could be done can be done if you just make that decision to make that turnaround in your diet or turnaround in your fitness journey permanent, to embrace the journey and not just make it a quick fix, but understand that this is long term, that this will be for the rest of our lives. And you know, coming from someone like me, I've really seen an overall just overhaul of my entire life for the better. I've been able to do things that I've thought to myself I could never do, I can now do. And the ability to be adventurous and go outdoors and even tie my shoes, you know, all of those things were delayed and dragged out because I said, oh, I'm okay with living a mediocre life. And I finally made that decision to say, you know what, I don't want to be mediocre. I've got to make the decision to finally let this settle in and me get over that hump. And being on the other side of that hump, I encourage as much as people as possible that it is worth it. It's tough. There's ups, there's downs, but it's absolutely worth it, because you look back and you realize that all that work was worth it when you're able to do things that you never thought you could do before.
So I think a lot of people watching this, as I like to say, that the main difference between the people that do and the people that don't is action. You know, there's nothing special about any one of us, but the people that do, they recognize they have a problem and they find a solution, but then that's not where they stop, because that's where most people stop. But you took action, you did something about it, and 300 pounds later, you're here to now be a inspiration to a lot of other people that now are wanting to, but they don't quite know where to start. And I have Mel SJ227 said, I've been on this journey and lost 48 pounds so far, but now I feel tired and demotivated. So was there ever a point during your journey where you were demotivated? Maybe you had hit some plateaus, and maybe there was something where it demotivated you. And how did you get through that?
Yeah. So there are definite many moments for myself that were demotivating, you know, from plateaus to stalls. Those are very common in the kind of the demotivating area. I did deal with gout pretty badly when I was losing the weights, and gout would prevent me from going to the gym. And my mentality is, you know, I'm getting on this journey, but I have my body fighting against me, and it's fighting against me trying to take care of itself. And it got very frustrating. It got very demotivating, like that person mentioned. And the best way I could say that I got out of that is that I had to embrace that it is a journey, that bad days and bad weeks do come, but if you stay consistent, stay steady, and stay to the plow, eventually your body does have to succumb to the habits that you're developing. So, you know, I had moments where I couldn't go to the gym for a week, and fitness wise, I said, you know what, I can't do what I want to do in the gym to continue to lose weight. Well, I had to be adaptable. I had to be flexible and say, you know what, if I can't go in the gym, I'm going to make sure that my macros, that my calories, that everything's going to be in line so that I don't experience this grand old fluctuation of weight, that I'm going to be adaptable and flexible no matter what happens. So demotivating times, frustrating times do come, especially in plateaus and stalls. But to embrace the mentality that this is long term and for the rest of your life, and that this just isn't, I'm going to get here and stop. It helps to know that you're going to have bad days, bad weeks. But in those, if you stay consistent, your body will catch up. Your body will respond to the good habits that you're putting in place. And that's simply why I believe that I'm here today, is that in the midst of frustrations, in the midst of those demotivating times, I just stayed the course. You have to stay the course in the midst of the ups and downs, because those are going to come. But if it's a lifelong journey, I'm not going to hold myself up too much in a lifelong journey on a minor hiccup or a hiccup here and there. I'm going to stay the course and say, I'm doing this until I'm 80, until I'm 90. And if some minor steps come along the way, that's okay. I'll take those in stride, because eventually I'm developing good habits that my body has to respond to.
And I remember one of my mentors said to me that I think he said, good habits are hard to form but easy to live with. Whereas on the other hand, bad habits are easy to form but hard to live with.
Yeah.
So I think it is true that you have to understand that ups and downs are a part of everyone's journey. And sometimes, you know, we see people, whether it be on social media or in films, and we see this, we don't see everything that goes on during the course of the journey. We just see the after pictures, we see the before pictures, and we look and we admire the difference. But what I tell a lot of my clients is that, you know, in the beginning when they're starting, that those before and after pictures take years in the making. And it takes years of consistency, and it takes years of falling off and getting back on. And I said, look, falling off is part of the process, but getting back on is what truly gets people from point A to point B. I said, this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's going to take some time. So I'm glad that you said that. And you probably answered a lot of people's questions with that, because look, there's going to be, it's easy to do when you're motivated. It's hard to do when you don't want to go to the gym, but you know you need to go because it's what you should be doing. And, you know, and I know part of our conversation, you said, you know, that you weren't living the life that you were supposed to be living, being overweight. So tell us more about how that felt.
You know, I can think back at the moment of going to the beach and having to stop halfway, and not being able to actually see it immediately. I had to take multiple stops on the way, and I remember going back to that same coastal town and making that walk. But there's actually a trail that goes up a hill, and it actually requires a little bit more effort, and common people won't take that route. And I remember that sense of enjoyment that, man, that time when my head was down, when the sweat was dripping off my face, when I made that good decision for food, all of that was summed up in this moment right here, where I can do something that I couldn't do before. It even relates to something small like a roller coaster. You know, I waited 2 hours in line for, I remember the Batman ride. 2 hours in line, it's a hot summer day, I'm ready to get on the ride, and I remember sitting on that seat and having that look from the employee to try to get another employee to push that bar down just so that they can hear that first click, just so I can actually ride the ride. And I remember sitting there while tons of people were on the side waiting for the next ride, and you see two people pushing on that. And there I am facing my bad decisions right there, where they're trying to get me on that roller coaster and they can't. And they ended up not being able to get me on that roller coaster. I had to take that walk of shame at that time. And I remember the very first time I was able to get on Space Mountain, and I put a post up recently of the look on my face, the actual picture that was taken once I knew I was on the ride. And that picture, you know, picture's worth 1,000 words. That's probably worth 1,000, because you can see the joy, the hard work, the relief, is this going to be worth it? Answer. You can see is all this hard work, the frustration, the ups and downs, the demotivating times, is all of that worth it? And you can see it in that. You can see it in the joy in my face, that at the end of the day, it takes hard work for change. It takes hard work to make things happen. But I have this one body. I've got this one life. And it's my responsibility to do something positive and to do something good with it. So there's a lot of things that I just wrote off for myself, because I've been big my whole life, like riding a zip line. And it's out of all that hard work where I see myself now, hey, I can get in a kayak. I can go on a zip line. I can walk into a room and not feel like everyone's staring at me. I can do things that affect the outcome, that change the narrative of what people see. And that's you know, what motivates me and continues to motivate me now, that, you know, I've been able to change the narrative for myself, and I want to continue to change the narrative, that, you know, I'm not that big guy that walks in the room anymore. I'm the guy that's willing to take control, to control the narrative, and to do what's right for myself and for my body.
So dcp.is.me. I'm not fully understanding this question, but he says, but did you think of anything about then, Dusty? So I'm not completely understanding that question. So if you can rephrase that question, because I'm sure it's a good question, and maybe I should understand it, but I just don't, unfortunately. So rephrase that question and go ahead and put it up. And guys, as you can already see, if you have any questions for Dusty that you want to ask during this live, your questions are probably much more important than mine, because you guys are the one that need your questions answered. And I know Dusty's going to give us his Instagram a little bit later, so you guys can reach out to him directly. There we go. So he said, when you couldn't get on the ride, did you think anything of it at that time?
Yeah, there's a feeling there's that feeling where people are staring, people have a thought in their mind, and it's almost like I got used to it. Even on the schoolyard when I was growing up as a kid, being big and being overweight, it was always a secondary thought of the first thing that they think about me. Their first impression of me is, oh, he's big. And that was just another notch on that belt of, oh, he's big, or, oh, look at that guy. And I don't know if this makes sense, but another portion of what motivated me is, in a sense, I kind of wanted to disappear. Like, I became the focal point when I walked into a room. And when I walked into a room, I just wanted to blend in with everyone else and not be someone that stood out because of my size. So on the ride and being denied on the ride, it was something to where I was a cause, or I was a stirring point for, conversation. And I didn't want to be that. So it was a very, very troubling or difficult feeling for me to go through. But I would also see those people that saw me on the ride throughout the day in the amusement park. And it's that thought that they have, oh, that's the guy that didn't fit on the ride. And, all of these things just were notches on the belt of the reasons why. And those whys are what continue to drive me today, and what drove me through that entire process. Because, again, the process is up, it is down, there are frustrating moments, but I have to sit back and plan, where's my motivation, where is my drive? And these are some of the things that drove me throughout that time.
So looking back at where you're at now, do you wish you would have started your journey sooner? Yes. I started this journey when I was 32 years old. And if I could have started this journey when I was in high school, when I got out of high school, I lived my entire 20s battling with weight. I lived my entire 20s worrying about what the scale said. And that's not something I concern myself with now as much. The scale number doesn't drive me. I do use it to keep me accountable, but it's not the first thing on my mind. The first thing on my mind now is, what can I do? What am I available to do now? And so if I could have taken the opportunity to make that decision to get over that hump, because again, I yo-yo dieted. I went, down 60, gained 80, down 50, gained 60. I just kept going back and forth because I felt that I got to a certain point and I said, oh, well, I'm stalling, or I'm plateauing, and, nothing's really moving. And so then I, would go back to my bad eating habits, and eventually I would just gain the weight back. And this time it had to be different. And I wish I made this decision a lot sooner, that I did it a lot quicker, that I lost it a lot quicker, because I could have done things in my 20s that I couldn't do before. I mean, I for a time, I couldn't get on one airplane seat. I had to take 2 seats. And so, that gets expensive over time. And so I could have saved some money too. Yeah. So IFE.Jones says 50 pounds down and so motivated to keep it going. And that's the stuff we like to hear. That's exactly why we do this. And I'm glad to see that somebody watching this live has seen some results, has lost some weight, and they're so motivated to keep going, because that's what we want to do. We want to continue to motivate people to continue to do what they know they should do to get to where they want to be. So what do you say to someone that doesn't quite know where to start with their journey, whether they're planning on going down, I'm going to do this natural on my own, or I know I need some assistance. What is the first step someone should do regardless of what path they take?
The first thing, and a lot of times, it's immediately pointed to action, and it's like, well, I have to physically go do something. Part of the action phase is actually planning or pre-planning what you want to do and how you're going to do it. If you're going to go into it without a plan, then eventually that non-plan is going to catch up, and eventually you might fizzle off of that diet or fizzle off of that fitness journey. Having a plan, but having a plan in a way that you know that you can stick to it long term. So if we're like, well, I'm going to go on this crash diet and I'm going to lose this amount of weight and I'm just going to go after it and I'm just going to lose a bunch of weight, eventually that stuff doesn't last. That's why weight loss is such a popular topic and something that is discussed heavily on TV shows and all around social media, is because it's something to where we go into it, we see immediate result, but then we're not prepared for the after effect, or we're not prepared to do it long term. So if you're starting this journey, pre-plan on doing something that you're prepared to do for the rest of your life. At the end of the day, healthy habits is what's led to my success. Consistency is what's led to my success. And if I'm gonna eat a cracker a day for 7 days straight and I'm going to lose 20 pounds, that's not long term. That's going to last for 7-8 days. Then you're going to get really hungry and then probably gain all that weight back. So I think the first thing is pre-planning, is getting out there and looking and talking to coaches, talking to a trainer, talking to someone that's willing to give you as much information as possible on what's going to work long term. For some, it's, I'm going to stay consistent for 6 days, and on the 7th day, I'm going to have a cheat meal. For some, it's, hey, I'm going to go on this particular diet and I'm going to be doing this long term. Whatever it is, pre-plan for it and be educated enough to know yourself on what you could really stick to, and know yourself enough to know what's going to fizzle off. Hey, I'm going to go to the gym 6 days a week. If you know yourself, are you going to go 6 days a week? And can you go 6 days a week, say with your job or with your responsibilities at your home or with your kids? I'm going to go at 4 o'clock in the morning. Well, eventually when you get tired at 4 o'clock in the morning, can you go long term? Can you continue to do it? And so questions like that we ask ourselves, I think, is the very first thing we should do on what we're really capable of and what we could do that can become long-term. Because, this didn't happen overnight for me. I share my before and afters, and didn't happen in 6 months. It's been almost 3 years now, since this journey begun. And, looking back 3 years, it's been a long 3 years. There's been a lot of things that have happened in that 3 years. And the only reason I can attribute the success I have now is that I've simply made that plan to be successful in knowing myself and getting stuff out. So, hey, I'm going to start a diet and I want to get away from snacking or get away from this. Well, let me think ahead and get the trigger foods out of my house. Let me not, keep the Cheez-Its, keep the potato chips in this particular area of the house. Let me have my husband or my family hide them, so that way if I want to stay consistent, I'm thinking ahead not to trigger myself into stumbling or going into my old eating habits. So I think that pre-thinking is really, really important to be prepared to be long-term for your success.
I mean, it's great advice. I mean, planning is the key to everything. And it's something that I tell a lot of my clients, is that if you just plan on winging it, that's not a plan. You need to know, you need to look at where you're going with the end in mind. And what I tell a lot of people is plan backwards. Look at the goal and then say, okay, what was the next thing that needed to happen prior to me accomplishing that goal? And go step by step backwards until you get to the present. And now you've got your blueprint of everything that you need to do. Now, in this day and age, you really don't have to do that, because now you have people like yourself that are laying out the blueprint for people. Now you just got to follow success, because as they say, success leaves clues. And now you just got to, if you just do those things, you'll get those results. Again, it's no mystery. The right actions get the right results. So I like that you said that. Very good advice. Alan AY21 wants to know, how many calories a day were you eating when you first started your journey?
When I first started my journey, I was trying to keep it under 2,000 calories. The biggest thing I was focusing on was protein and keeping kind of the sugar absolutely low and keeping the carbs low as well. I wanted to focus on my protein intake. That was the biggest thing that I focused on, to start off with.
Mm-hmm. So let's move forward a little bit. So you said there was a point where you consulted with your doctor to see your options. You said your doctor gave you a few options, and you said surgery was one of those options. But at that point, you wanted to see if you can do it on your own. Mm-hmm. What were some of those options, the other options that the doctor gave you?
So some of the other options that my doctor gave me, besides going and having surgery, was the MetaFast route. He said, this can be very costly, but it's essentially shakes that you would take at certain points of the day, and these shakes would lead to weight loss. He talked to me about Atkins and some different weight loss brands that have been successful, have talked to me about Weight Watchers and different stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So I was working with and had been consulting my doctor for about a year up until the time that I did elect for the surgery. And there were a couple different options that he gave me, some that I tried and was unsuccessful with, and then some that I just, it didn't work. Like, good example, the MetaFast was very costly. I think it was upwards of $300 to $500 a month just in my local market, and that wasn't something financially I was prepared to do. So there were some that I tried and some that just didn't seem feasible for me. Mm-hmm,
mm-hmm. So what made you decide on the surgery that you chose?
Mm-hmm. So there were a couple different options that my doctor talked about the gastric sleeve or the vertical sleeve gastrectomy, talked to me about the bypass, the duodenal switch, and gave me those three options. He laid out each one of them for me, told me exactly what the procedure was and what the expected weight loss for each particular one. Because I was sitting at about 534 pounds, getting the weight off was of big importance. So I knew immediately for myself, I wanted to put myself in a position to change the outcome and do it in more of a accelerated manner. So I was looking over the duodenal switch and then also the bypass. I elected for the gastric bypass because it was a little bit less invasive, as they were saying. It was something known as the gold standard. It's been around, or it's been done the longest. And the amount of weight that I had to lose, it was something that my doctor recommended to me in the amount of weight that I needed to do. So I elected for the gastric bypass, and my surgery was July 29th of 2016.
So was there any other research that you did outside of the recommendations that you got from your doctor? Did you go on social media? Did you do any of that stuff to really?
Yeah, so I did a lot of social media research. The nice thing about social media is that there's a lot of information out there, especially in the internet age. There's a lot of information that we can do in research. I did have to spend upwards of 6 months doing diet documentation and doing a whole process before the surgery actually happened. So in the process of him talking to me about it, the conversation started within my household and with my family about the potential of doing surgery and the fears that come with it, the benefits that come with it, and weighing those options with my family and weighing those options on if that's something I wanted to do. So I did do a lot of research. I watched a lot of videos. I went to a lot of classes that prepped me to make this decision. Because surgery is a major decision. I'm having surgery and I need to take it serious, and that's another motivating factor for myself. If I'm going to come to the point where I need surgery to put myself in a better position health-wise, then I need to take it serious. I can't try to find a way to have a meal that I always used to have after the surgery. I've got to know that when I have this surgery, I've got to take it serious. And I've got to I've got to do exactly as the doctor recommends, and I've got to do exactly as he's advising, because obviously that's in place because it's been successful in the past, and I want to be successful now. So I do attribute that to a lot of my success is sticking to exactly as the doctor ordered, but also doing the research that require doing the planning, like I mentioned, prior to know, okay, what are trigger foods? What are common successes? What are common setbacks after having the surgery? And so I did do a good amount of research prior, just so I was prepared for what I was about to do.
Mm-hmm. So Alan AY21 wants to know how much you weighed on surgery day.
My pre-op appointment, I was 534 pounds, and then my surgery date was 2 weeks later. My surgery weight was 498.8, and then yeah, so my actual surgery, getting on the scale right before the surgery was 498.8, and then the pre-op diet, they wanted me to go on a liquid diet for 2 weeks. Because my weight was in majority of my midsection, there was a heavy concern that they wouldn't be able to do the surgery, so my liquid diet was needed to come down from the 534 so they could do the procedure. And in fact, after the procedure was done, my doctor did have to do an additional incision, just because that area was too crowded for him to do it the traditional way. So he had to actually go in there and make a additional incision just to finish up the procedure.
So were you at any point discouraged during that 6 months of pre-surgery requirements?
Absolutely was I discouraged. Yes, frustrated, discouraged, wanting to give up. All of those emotions came to a head in those 6 months. I ended up changing jobs in that time. And in the very beginning of me transitioning to a new job, my new insurance didn't want to accept the old documentation. And so I had to make a lot of phone calls. I had to do the phone tree to talk to whoever was going to be the decision maker to allow it to happen. So frustrations, everything that could have, I felt, in my opinion, everything that could have come against my decision to make a better choice for my life came against me. And that was, it was almost a prequel to what was happening after surgery, that I needed to understand this is long term. Like, I'm not just going to do this for a year and just go back to the old me. Like, this has to be a new me. I have to change the narrative. So I embraced during that 6 months, and I learned almost that, you know, I am frustrated. I have had enough. I don't want to talk to anybody else. I have talked to who I need to talk to. I just want all this to work out. And eventually it all worked out. I got to the right person in the phone tree to have the the new insurance accept the new one, and it eventually worked out. I stayed the course and it worked out, but frustrations and all that definitely came.
Yeah. So Lemony Fit wants to know, how much recovery time did you need?
So recovery time, as far as between the time I had surgery to the time I actually went to the gym, was 6 weeks. Before lifting anything, do any kind of major physical activity, was 6 weeks. But I'll be honest with you, as soon as the surgery was done, there was a moment when I woke up from surgery and I was in extreme pain. I looked around me and it just was not the right place, and the look of it, it scared me. It almost looked like a horror film, to be honest. And I remember being pushed out the door, and I made eye contact with my wife, and I knew at that moment I would be okay. But when that moment happened and I made eye contact with her, and it was like the worst moment of my life, and then I felt like I was going to be okay, everything came to a moment where, okay, I need to take this serious. And okay, it's game on. And the competitive challenge side of me said, okay, all right, it's time to turn this on. It's time to go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. So 2 hours after surgery, I was up and walking, and I was walking around the hospital floor. They said, well, sir, every 2 to 3 hours, we'd like you to get up. I was up every 45 minutes. I was up enough to where the nurse is like, you don't have to get up this much. We go, no, this is it. I'm done being that person anymore. Like, I need to change the narrative. And so I was up every 45 minutes, and I was out of the hospital a lot quicker. I had to do some necessary things to check off the list for the hospital to release me. But 2 hours after surgery, I was up every 45 minutes walking. I knew I didn't want blood clots. I knew I wanted the blood to flow, and I knew that this was the new life. This is.
So what do you say to people that think that surgery is either the easy way out or surgery is cheating? What do you say to those people?
So I have had some of those comments in some different articles, and the first thing I will say is anybody who has had the surgery, they can second me on this, that this is not the easy way out, that I've seen plenty of people around me that have had the surgery, have stuck with their old decisions, have lost a little bit of weight, and then just gained it right back. I've seen plenty of examples of that. And so to say it's the easy way out would mean that all the results are the same, and all the results are not the same. All the results are based on the decision you make after the surgery, the diet, the exercise, the eating habits, what you're doing with your activity level. And kind of a good way to relate it, and I was talking to my wife recently about this, is that we don't really harp too bad on drug addicts that go to rehab. And for me, food was an addiction. It was something that I was addicted to. And my rehab, for me and for myself, was the surgery. It was the time for me to go to put myself in a position where I can't have that, or I would reduce my ability to have that, and I would allow that time to really restructure my mind and how I thought about food, and to address that food addiction. And I came out of the rehab, and here I am from the rehab. And so we celebrate, excuse me, we celebrate drug addicts that come out of rehab and are able to live their new life, no longer addicted to drugs, yet we have a hard time accepting someone who has surgery, turns things around and is successful in saying that they've done something, good or something great for themselves. And I would just say that for me, the surgery was my rehab. It was the time for me to go away for a little bit, address the addiction I had to food, and now come out of that rehab, come out of that surgery and say, you know what, I'm going to use these healthy habits. I'm going to use this fitness mentality that I have to become the person that I want to be. And that's what's led me to today. I've addressed the food addiction. I've addressed what the triggers were for me. And I've been able to come out of my rehab and make better decisions and live a healthier lifestyle now.
Yeah. And the majority of people that are in a situation similar to the one you were in, it's food related. And I think even people that are not necessarily overweight, I think we're all addicted in some way to food, whether it be different types of food. And the reality is that the surgery didn't help. The surgery wasn't the key to you solving your food addiction. Okay. It was something that you did. So it seems like you had a pretty drastic change in relationship with food. How did you come to that? And what would you say to someone else that's struggling with controlling the way they eat? What advice would you give to them?
Yeah, so the relation with food, I think the mentality and the plan with my relationship with food had to change in the way that, food itself isn't bad, but it's how we treat the food and it's how we relate to food to what we do with it. So a good example, it's not that I just starved myself and stopped eating. I just started eating the right food. And this goes back to the plan portion, is actually finding the things that are nutritious, that are feeding my health and not feeding disease and not feeding, me being overweight. If I were to have a snack, it'd be easy to go to a candy bar or to go to a bag of potato chips or to go here and go there. And these things would be unhealthy habits. This would be a bad relationship with food. If I was stressed out and needed to say grab a bite to eat, going to the fast food line or getting fast food to kind of satisfy that stressful moment. I had to now change it and say, I'm not restricting myself and just not eating. I'm not stopping eating. I'm just now eating what nutritionally provides me what I need. So if I want a snack, I'm going to go to almonds. If I want something in between meals, I'm going to go to string cheese. I'm going to plan ahead and know that if I can peel that string cheese string by string, it's going to last over a period of time. So maybe that hunger strike that I have where I would eat a whole bag of potato chips, I'm now peeling string cheese and I'm not getting as bad, caloric impact than say some string cheese. I don't know how many times I've gone for a little handful of almonds and 2 string cheese for a snack. I've been full afterwards. I've been satisfied because of the fiber. And those would be common situations to where I would easily go to a bag of potato chips, maybe go get some buffalo wings or do this or do that. And it was almost like I understood that, hey, I've got to eat to lose weight. I've got to eat to live. But if I learn how to eat right and make those, if I plan to make the right decisions, then I'm going to be successful. So I think it does go back to the plan portion, is actually doing the research and doing what it takes to know what's going to be healthy for you long term. So, if you go after the protein bar that's got 41 grams of sugar, well, I mean, if you look right next to, next to it on the shelf, you might have one with 2 to 3 grams of sugar. That's going to be a lot better. It practically, or could even taste the same, but you're just now making a planning decision to get something that isn't going to harm you as much in relation to sugar or carbs, because you're planning on making decisions for yourself and for your body long term.
So it sounds like you got the diet part completely figured out. You've given some really good tips and really good information, but now I want to switch gears and now I want to talk a little bit about the gym, the physical activity part. A lot of people starting a journey are scared. They're nervous. They don't know what to do. Gyms are big, scary places, regardless of the size of it. Gyms can be very big, scary places. So what would be some beginner's gym advice that you would give to someone that's looking to take that next step and walk into a gym and do something?
Yeah, absolutely. So the gym for me, I actually didn't get into the gym until about 6 weeks after. I started off by just walking around my apartment complex. I just started walking. And eventually when I got to the gym, I knew that I wasn't going to go in and know every single machine, know what to do here. I was afraid I was going to look stupid. I was afraid that the machine would break on me if I were to try it. So again, I planned ahead and said, you know what, I'm just going to do the cardio machines that are very easy to do for the first 6 weeks. I can walk on the treadmill and I can increase the speed if I feel like it. You know what, I can do the elliptical or I can do the exercise bike. Those things that are pretty self-explanatory in how to use them, that's exactly how I started. I didn't go for the extreme machines. I see folks doing squats and doing these special workouts. For me, I was like, that's a hot mess, especially I'm, in the high 4s now, 6 weeks after. I'm in the high 4s. I'm not going to be able to do these. What if I fall? What if I trip? So I really just started off on a cardio machine, a treadmill. And I increased my level of difficulty as weeks came on. And eventually, when I was 6 weeks into using just cardio machines, I now knew what my gym looked like. I now knew where machines were. I saw other people using a particular machine a certain way. So I would almost get that knowledge from them using it and seeing how to use it. And so I got acclimated to my surroundings because I was there so much. And then eventually I moved over to the circuit. My gym has a circuit to where it's similar to the machines that are around the gym, but it's a pre-planned circuit. And I went from the cardio machines to the circuit. and I started seeing how other people were doing it. I would do it myself, and it would just be, I would just start slow. And again, the mentality of it being a journey. If I plan on being healthy and going to the gym 3 to 4 to 5 times a week long term, well, I'm going to be in this gym for almost the rest of my life. I'm going to be looking for healthy things to do in the gym long term. So for me, it was just acclimating myself, taking that intimidation away. You know, I think about everyday things whenever we try something new, or we try a class for the first time, or do this or do that. We're very, very apprehensive at first because we're nervous on what's going to happen. But eventually, as we go and we're consistent and we're continuing to go, we get acclimated to our surroundings and we become more comfortable. The gym is the same way. You just have to get acclimated and get comfortable. And you start that by just simply doing the cardio machine. Get on a treadmill and, you know, hey, the 3.5 speed is easy enough. We'll put a couple notches on the incline, put it at 4.0 incline at 3.5 speed, and that's a little bit more difficult. Oh, that's easy now. We'll now put it at 7.0 incline and 4.0 speed, and continue to challenge yourself. And eventually, if you feel comfortable with your surroundings, then move on to something else. And it's gradual, but it's effective.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of people don't start because of the fear of failure. And a lot of people will view failure as a plateau. And I'm sure during the course of your journey, you probably had a few plateaus. And how did you overcome those plateaus?
Overcoming the plateaus for me was having a conversation with myself. Am I really being accountable to the decisions that I'm making? Am I really going to the gym consistently? Am I really intaking the right food? And if all of that went in line, then I had to almost coach myself to say, I'm doing what it takes. And if my body doesn't want to respond, well, it's going to have to eventually respond. And I met plenty of plateaus. I met plenty of moments where nothing was moving, nothing was happening. But then I began to learn and understand that in my particular body, changes don't really happen until like a 6-week time period. Every 6 weeks, I would notice a change in the mirror, like, whoa, or somebody would notice something. And every 6 weeks, something would happen. Well, then those 6 weeks in between, I wouldn't see much. And so I now had to change my mindset that, you know, I'm not going to go home after a really good workout and see a miraculous change. I'm going to have to know and understand that my change is really going to happen for a moment every 6 weeks. So now my mindset changes, that I'm not working out hardcore for a week and expecting to have a 6-pack of abs. I'm understanding that, hey, I'm doing this and I'm going to continue to do this and I'm going to keep doing this. And then about that 6-week mark, all of a sudden my wife or I notice something in the mirror. It's like, oh, okay. I mean, to be honest with you, I look at my midsection. If I move the skin to the side, I can see that the 6-pack abs. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know where those came from, to be honest with you. I don't know where they were hiding, but at first I didn't see them. But then eventually at one point I was like, hey, do you see that line? I would tell my wife, do you see that line? I think that line means it's an ab. And then eventually another one showed up and another one showed up. I was like, honey, look. And so it wasn't like, hey, I worked out for 6 weeks and was like, whoa, 6-pack. No, it was like, hey, I worked out 6 weeks, there's a little line. And then I worked out 6 weeks again, hey, there's another little line. It's like drawing. And so eventually the lines would eventually come about, and it took time. So someone struggling and someone encountering that, I guess, that demotivation side or that frustration of seeing things, it definitely takes over the course of a longer period of time to see these drastic results like the before and afters. But celebrate the line. Like myself, I had that line. Celebrate the line. You never had that line before. Celebrate that line. Celebrate fitting into something you haven't fit into before. Take those small victories and make them big. Because if you haven't experienced or done that before, jump with it. You know, I got into this size 34 pants. I've never been size 34 in my life. This isn't a small moment. This is huge. I'm going to go buy 14 pairs of 34 pants and wear them every single day. Blowing up those little small moments, even those non-scale victories, blowing those up and making them big, help that mind game of getting through the long-term journey.
So, I mean, I really wish that Instagram gave us an unlimited amount of time where we could talk, because I feel like there's so much more that you could share during this journey. But unfortunately, Instagram gives us an hour and then they cut us off. Yeah. And it seems like we just got on here, but we've been on for almost an hour now. So I guess one of my last questions is, what are you hoping to accomplish by sharing your story?
I have been able to change my narrative in that who I was, I'm not that person anymore. And it was small decisions over a longer period of time that developed habits for myself that ended up making the change that I can experience now. So I hope to share my journey to inspire someone else to change the narrative. I hope to put up a before and after to show that it's possible. Biggest thing I want to say is the overwhelming feeling of drowning, of the darkness that comes with feeling that there is no hope. I was there, and small steps got me out. It wasn't a big old, hey, I'm out of it. But small steps, small victories got me out of that darkness, that overwhelming feeling that I can't do anything about my situation. I was able to, and I hope to bring hope that if you're there, I was there, and I was able to make it through. If I was able to make it through, you can. And it just takes those small decisions, those small choices that lead up to habits, and those habits lead up to victories. And I would just hope that people experience victories alongside, you know, the victories I'm continuing to work on, because I'm not done. I'm still on this journey.
Great. So guys, the conversation does not have to stop here. And I'm sure a lot of people watching this have a lot more questions. So Dusty, why don't you go ahead and give everybody your Instagram. And what I'm going to do when I upload this to YouTube is I'm also going to add your Instagram so people can reach out to you directly, but give everybody your Instagram so they can reach out to you.
My Instagram is Dusty, DUSTY _lost, LOST _300 LBS, or Dusty Lost 300 pounds. That's my Instagram that I'm at.
There you got it, guys. There you have it. Another awesome episode of Weight Loss Warriors. Dusty, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story.
Thank you.
You gave a lot of good, usable, actionable information. And guys, I'm hoping that you do what Nike said and just do it. That's the only thing that separates you from getting to where you want to be. Yeah. So guys, we're about to get on out of here. Before we do that, if you've missed any of the past episodes, remember you can go on over to youtube.com/fitnessmotivation4u2. That's fitness motivation, the number 4, the letter U, the number 2. Also, if you've got a weight loss story that you'd like to share and you'd like to do it here on a future episode of Weight Loss Warriors, you're watching this live, DM me and let's talk. But if you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead down below in the description. There'll be a link where you can reach out to me, and let's talk about getting you on a future episode. Last but not least, if you're starting a weight loss journey, you don't quite know what to do, but you're on a journey and you're not quite getting results, let's talk. Reach out to me on, if you're watching this live, DM me. But again, if you're watching this on YouTube, down below, there's going to be a link in the description where we can talk about getting you into the best shape of your life. Guys, this is Mr. Fitness, the body transformation specialist, with Dusty, signing off. And as always, where there's a will, there's a way. And I hope you have a fantastically awesome day. Till next time.
Bye, guys.